Planning Commission. We'll begin the meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda for this evening is the approval of the minutes of the May 4, 2026 meeting. These minutes were distributed to the commissioners in advance of today's meeting. Do any of the commissioners have any changes to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, I will move to approve the minutes of May 4, 2026 meeting of the Planning Commission. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Golis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. The next item on the agenda for this evening is consideration of ordinance Ordinance 2025, nonconforming uses update, and this is amending the code of the Township of Radnor, Chapter 280, zoning-nonconforming uses. The agenda notes that it was dated December 3, 2025. Not sure, was this a version that came to us previously, or?
No, the Planning Commission has not seen this yet.
Okay. And with that, Mr. Nelson, maybe you could help introduce this proposed ordinance and give us a little context for the consideration.
Yeah, I'm still calling up my computer, but I can give you some overview right now.
Okay.
So there are well, let me step back. We're required to recognize nonconformities that are more kind of normally known as grandfathering, because people have property rights in the location of their buildings, the size of their lots, the activities that they're operating on these lots, so that when a zoning ordinance is enacted or a zoning ordinance is changed, those pre-existing buildings, lots, and uses under our both state and federal constitution have the right to continue. We can't take them away unless we want to pay to take them away. And in reality, even a township like Radnor does not have that type of money. So what has been done is we've created this principle called nonconformities, and we have a nonconforming lot is one of the three, and a nonconforming lot is a lot that's generally undersized or too narrow. We have minimum lot sizes that we require before a lot can be built upon, and we have minimum lot widths that are required before a lot can be built upon. But there are lots, especially in a place like Radnor, that pre-exist these rules and regulations by a century. So we have to have regulations in the zoning ordinance kind of saying, hey, this is how we're going to handle these sorts of lots. Likewise, we have non-conforming buildings. These are buildings that, generally speaking, don't meet the required setbacks. They're too close to the road, they're too close to a side yard or a side lot line, they're too close to a rear lot line. You sometimes might have buildings that are too big for the lot. They exceed the building coverage limitations, or they exceed the amount of the impervious surface limitations for a lot. But once again, especially in a place like Radnor, we have buildings that were built 200 years before zoning was enacted. And so we have to recognize that they have a right to continue in existence even though they do not comply with our zoning. And then lastly, and this is really probably the most complicated, we have non-conforming uses. And these are activities that have been performed on a property before zoning was enacted. You can think about, a shop that existed on a corner for, years and years and years, and the zoning was enacted, and that shop was now in a residential district, and, commercial uses aren't allowed. Well, we couldn't just go in and say to the shop owner, oh, sorry, you're out of business. they're allowed to continue operating. They're actually allowed to kind of continue not only to operate, but also grow and expand in normal ways that sort of activity would grow and expand elsewhere. So once again, we have to have zoning regulations kind of recognizing this fact and controlling how these nonconforming uses grow, expand, maybe change to a new nonconforming use or change to a conforming use, expand on the lot, all those sorts of things. Our current ordinance language is not well written. It kind of mushes these three different types of nonconformities and regulates them all at once, and that really doesn't work. The new language that you have before you was really designed to kind of separate these three different type of nonconformities into distinct areas, have distinct regulations for each one of them, and have the regulations be a little more clear, and so that, whoever is reading the regulations are all coming up with the same understanding of what they mean and what they require. So that's the
Okay,
little
so
bit
so
of
this
background.
is an attempted overhaul to replace and improve upon what's already existing
Yes.
in the code. Okay. I guess we could start with any comments from commissioners at this point.
How does the sort of the comprehensive plan and the downtown master plan, how do they address these things? So, what are the synergies between those two initiatives and this?
I don't think, I'm not intimately familiar with either of those documents, but generally speaking, those documents don't generally address the kind of inner workings of nonconformities. Most of them will acknowledge that they exist, and certainly in a place like Wayne are going to acknowledge that, hey, we need to deal with them. And but as far as the actual language of the zoning ordinance goes, I don't think those documents are going to knock it into those specifics. And this ordinance wasn't written in looking at those two documents, saying, okay, we're trying to reflect what's going on with those documents. This ordinance was more written to try to basically make sure we comply with the law and we remain constitutional, in compliance with the constitutions.
Did something specific initiate this kind of rewriting or drafting of this article? Was there some?
The township over the last decade has had multiple problems with the current language, with developers kind of basically taking advantage of loopholes, with issues with different staff members coming up with different, well, I read it this way, oh, well, I read it that way, which is certainly not a good thing. So this has been these issues have been ongoing for a long, long time. And I know, John Rice, Kevin Kachansky, and myself would have discussions over, hey, we got to do something about it. And I think, this ordinance was actually written last fall. And I think also, the Board of Commissioners have been brought up to speed on this, and they agree that this needs to be, something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thanks.
Is there, go ahead, Joe.
Sorry. Lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
I apologize.
No worries.
Is there a way for the township planner or someone to visualize this for us on a map?
Ooh.
Specifically, Mr. Kim, would you like us to take an example of the three items the solicitor noted, of the three facets of this, or are you talking about like township-wide?
Township-wide.
We just, at this point in time, we don't have that ability, right? That would be analyzing thousands of parcels to look for this, and we don't have that capability at this time in-house. That would actually be a project that would have to go through the Board of Commissioners, because we'd have to pay a consultant to do that. I'm not sure, I know what you're getting at, you'd like to get an idea of the magnitude.
Yeah, that's
and
right,
the
yeah.
quantity of the properties, but we just don't have that, nor do we have the bandwidth internally to do that.
What about the former? What about just example of each?
I think we could do one of each,
Yeah.
if that would help. You know, I don't think that's a problem.
No.
So, based on what the solicitor said, so then what we would come up with is one property that has a non-conforming use, one property that has a non-conforming building, and one property that has a non-conforming lot. We can most certainly do that, Mr. Kim.
Okay.
So my question would be, the intention wouldn't be to drill down into, like, one of the issues with this kind of code rewrite is record keeping and specific issues or problems or examples are often not existing, right? So the record keeping has not been great. We know on Shade Tree Commission, for example, we don't have records sometimes of lots that were cleared of trees. And so we're even thinking of keeping like implementing like a look back, like a 3-year look back type thing, where we can look at records and say, there were trees on this property at this time. I'm not talking about trees, I'm just saying as an example, because near the beginning of this rewrite, it talks about the zoning officer may, but is not required to identify and register all non-conforming lot structures and or uses. Well, I don't think that's very strong language. I think if we have a zoning officer and we want this kind of record keeping, we should insist on it.
No, we do not want to require the township to do things, because the township will not do them, and then the township gets into trouble. And there's several cases out there where a shall language has been used against townships and said, oh, you failed to do this, and therefore we're going to let the developer do what they want. So the purpose, and I.
But Peter, I think my point is, if you say, let's have the zoning officer may, right, may identify and register all non-conforming lots, structures, and or uses. So in this ordinance, we're saying the zoning officer, it's up to the zoning officer to register everything he wants to register. So I think.
No, if you're under the MPC, one of the things an applicant or landowner can do is they can request that that my property be registered as a non-conforming use or a non-conforming property, or whatever. You know, so if there's a property owner who wants that done, there is a process in it that they can do that. And in fact, if the zoning officer refuses, that's one of the specific items that can be appealed to a zoning hearing board. The MPC specifically says the zoning hearing board has jurisdiction over a denial of a registration of a non-conforming use. So I think the zoning officer is not going to go out. No zoning officer has the time to go out and actually figure out all the non-conforming uses now in a township. It's just is an impossibility. You know, because you can spend days researching these uses, trying to figure out, well, was this particular use established before zoning was established or before we changed our zoning ordinance? It can be a very document-intensive, research-intensive process. So zoning officers are not, and we can't, we could hire a separate staff person in Radnor just to do this full-time, and it would take them a decade. So yeah, this language is in place so that when we encounter a situation where it would be good for the township, good to protect the neighborhood, good to deal with complaints, that we can go out and register something as a non-conforming use, then we have the ability to do it. But we don't want to impose it, require the zoning officer to do it, because it would be something impossible to comply with.
Okay, I hear you. But maybe we should have something in this document that says intent is to do what you just said. When cases arise,
But see, intent really is, that sort of language isn't enforceable. It's kind of like, I hate when zoning, when zoning ordinances said, oh, to the best of your ability, do blank. From my standpoint, might as well not have that language at all, because it's not enforceable. You can't, no way can I go to the judge and say, hey, no, they're not operating to the best of their ability. I don't, zoning ordinance is a very kind of, you do this, you don't do that. It's not really, shouldn't not be kind of like, well, we'd like to see this type of thing, because then it just creates problems. So, yeah, I don't think putting the intent in there, and I also be worried some developer or attorney would then use that against the township.
I think there may be some confusion regarding the word "all" here. If our intention is not to register all non-conforming uses, lots, or buildings, maybe the word "all" shouldn't be there.
We could change that to any.
Or just strike it.
Mm-hmm. It could be
Question,
struck,
just-
yes.
Are we being asked to ultimately make some type of recommendation in today's meeting to sort of the board to approve this or
I
revise it?
think,
Or is
I
this
think
just-
today's meeting is for you guys to basically give me your
Okay.
suggestions, comments, changes, what you like, what you don't like. I'm gonna go back
Okay.
and to the best of my ability, make those things happen, and then probably come back to you guys and say, okay, here's how I put your ideas into play. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah.
And Solicitor Nelson, just to go off that, you already have, do you not, some ideas, suggestions that you would like to redline already? So even if we were not to have any additional edits, you already have edits that you would make, redline, and come back to us?
Yeah, there, in reviewing this in preparation for this meeting, I realized there's language currently in the zoning ordinance. There's two definitions that we need to delete because they directly compete with the new definitions in here. And then there's 5 references to section 101, which this new ordinance is eliminating. So we got to change those references. So yes, there's changes that need to be made to this regardless of what you guys say.
Okay.
Chairman, I would like to actually suggest that we delay making a recommendation until we've seen the examples and that we've had some time to kind of study this, unless there is an urgent need.
We weren't being asked to make a recommendation.
My understanding is, yes, we want this done, but we don't need to have it done next month.
So it mentions a fee schedule, but I didn't see a fee schedule. I'm also kind of confused as to the purpose of that, and it seems a disincentive for anyone to like go ahead and say, here's my nonconformity if they have to pay a fee.
So the township, as every township does, adopts a fee schedule that covers all their fees across the board. Is generally adopted at the reorg meeting, the first meeting in January. Posted on the website. It covers everything, all zoning, building permits, police reports, literally any and all fees the township charges is on the fee schedule. So that's why we reference this. Instead of we don't want to put an actual fee in the ordinance, because that means if we want to change the fee, we'd have to change the ordinance, which is very hard. The fee schedule is a resolution, so it can be changed at any time. And the purpose of the fee is to cover the township's costs in doing the work for whatever is requested. It's not and it legally cannot be a revenue-raising device. The fees have to be set to generally cover what the township's costs are to doing whatever application is being filed, whatever review is being asked. And in this case, it's a fee to cover a zoning officer's time to go through an application for a registration of a nonconforming use, to either say, yes, that is correct, or no, it's incorrect. So that's the purpose.
And is there currently a mechanism, with forms to register a non-conforming use?
Mr. Vines, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so right now, I get it. You have a fee schedule for the township in general, and we're going to say that registering a non-conforming use would be on that fee schedule, but it doesn't currently exist. Is that,
Yeah, I don't know if this, this is not a new activity. This is something that's been done for decades in Radnor. It's not done very often. I do not know if there's a specific fee currently on the fee schedule. If there isn't, it's something we should add, regardless of whether or not this ordinance is adopted. It's something that Radnor should add. And, like I said, that fee can be adjusted at any point in time. If the township realizes they're losing money or making too much money on it, it should be adjusted up and down.
okay, because I think I had the same question when I first saw this proposal. It's referencing a fee schedule, and you're raising the question, I wonder what the fee is. So is there a fee, and should even the fee, even if it's not going to be in this ordinance, should it be referenced so that it's tied to this ordinance, and the fee would?
It's very common, and in fact, I'm sure, I can almost guarantee you, if you go through the zoning ordinance, you will see other references in our zoning ordinance to the fee schedule.
Yes.
This is a normal thing that every township does.
And I just wondered if the fee for this activity to be noticed in the fee schedule, would be set as part of the ordinance process? Or is that just completely separate, or does it already exist?
It can, but it does not have to be.
Mr.
So-
Vines, I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Vines, usually the department heads, manager, we provide suggestions to the finance department and the manager for the fee schedule as part of the budget process. And in every submission, you'll see in this case, you would see the 2026 fee schedule fees, and then the 2027. And if it's a new item, it is highlighted as such. And I am checking the fee schedule as the solicitor talks.
Yep, I'm looking at it too.
The only thing I see that would potentially apply is zoning compliance, $100.
And I saw that also, and that might be something, I don't know how Kevin, dealt with these things. But if Kevin got, someone making this request, Kevin could say, okay, that falls under zoning compliance, you need to pay a $100 fee. I don't know if that's the case or isn't the case. The registrations do occur, but it wouldn't surprise me if the township only got 1 or 2 a year, if that.
So, Mr. Kuchansky, that usually, and again, along with the solicitor, usually zoning compliance is if you brought a plan in or a lot and said, I would like to know if my lot, you as a homeowner, complies to the current zoning of R1, which it's located. It wasn't a deep dive, as you could tell by the fee. Right.
I have some questions regarding 280-172B6 and 280-172C. These are, just to reference these provisions of this proposed ordinance, is that the first one is, any proposed expansion of the nonconforming use shall not exceed an aggregate of more than 50% of the existing area utilized for the nonconforming use. And at the same time, 280-172C states that no more than one expansion to a non-conforming building or use shall be granted. So this creates two standards. You can have one expansion, and the limit is 50%. So when you go for that expansion,
But that just recognize that 50% only applies to the expansion of a non-conforming use. It doesn't apply to expansion of a non-conforming building.
sure. So Solicitor Nelson, how does this square up with the natural expansion doctrine for businesses?
So you're kind of comparing apples and oranges here. So what these two provisions deal with is the physical size of the non-conforming use. So, let's say I have here's the classic, the non-conforming junkyard. I want to expand my, own a lot, it's half the lot is covered by the junkyard. I want to expand it onto the other half of the lot. What these limitations would do would be, one, well, you only could expand it over basically 25% of the remaining lot, because that would be a 50% expansion. And you could only do it one time. You couldn't do it 10% one year, 10% next year, and then 5% the following. You'd have to do it all at once or not at all. And it is perfectly legal for townships to put those limitations on the expansion of the actual size of the non-conforming use. The doctrine of natural expansion, that has to do with how the activity, how over time, an activity of a certain business may change. So once again, with junkyards. For decades, junkyards were just places you park junk vehicles. And then in the 60s and 70s, you had a technological improvement where you got the car crushers and the car grinders and that sort of thing. And so under the doctrine of natural expansion, if someone came in with a non-conforming junkyard and said, hey, I want to install a car crusher, the township would have to allow it, because that's how the business has grown to include those sorts of activities. You can't just, the township couldn't say, oh, no. Junkyard means just parking junk vehicles on the ground. You can't do anything else. So that's what the doctrine of natural expansion, it doesn't have to do with a physical expansion of the use. It has to do with the activities within it and how those activities have changed over time.
I understand. So in the case of this exemplary junkyard, I would have to expand it by 50%, and that would be, I would have no other choice here other than, if I went for a smaller expansion than that, that would use up that one time.
That would use up your one time. Now, you could make, the planning commission could make the recommendation to get rid of subsection C, saying that's too restrictive. You also could make a recommendation to get rid of the other one, the 50%. I'd get rid of C before the 50% if you want to get rid of one or the other. Every zoning ordinance I've seen has some sort of limitation on the expansion. I've seen 25%, 50%. Usually 50 is about the biggest, but that's a very common requirement. The other one, and C, the one shot and you're done, that's a little less common, and I think that's really more of a recommendation from an administrative standpoint, just trying to keep track of everything. And I think back, 20, 30 years ago, it was much harder to kind of keep track of all the various expansions and have you hit your ceiling yet or not. In this day and age with GIS and computers and aerials, it's much easier to be like, oh, no, you've hit the 50%, you're done. So, I certainly could see getting rid of subsection C and just relying on the 50% to control everything.
And just to follow up on that, we're going to have a database that will log in all of these expansions and so forth. So even if you did it multiple times, you would have a way to track it easily now.
If everyone did their job, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we should, to be honest, in the past, we've had databases that are called manila folders. And if everyone, the zoning officer did their job and kept track of everything and got all the right documentation, then yeah, we kept track of it.
Okay.
Practically speaking, things always slip through the cracks.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's much easier these days to keep track of everything and compile everything and make sure it doesn't get lost.
Okay. And just to clarify, subsection 172B6 that we were just talking about with the 50%,
Yes.
that 50% is measured at one point in time. So it's not like you can get one expansion and now you've got a larger, starting
Correct.
point. Okay.
And it's going to be up to the landowner at the time who's requesting the expansion to prove, hey, this was the size of the use back in 1953 when the zoning was adopted or whatever. They're the ones who are going to have to try to prove that, and then it's going to be up to the zoning officer to confirm, oh yeah, I agree with you, or say, no, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. I think you're missing something.
Okay, well, let me just ask you one other question. If we were to keep in subsection C and someone has previously already gotten an expansion, is that going to be a constitutional problem of taking away their ability, to get another?
No, and in fact, yeah, if someone had already done one expansion, if we kept C there, and we, in our records, we had record that they did already do an expansion, yeah, they'd be done. They couldn't expand again without getting a variance. But at the same time, if someone done 10 expansions prior, it's not like they have to get rid of 9 of them and go back, but yeah, this ordinance specifically says it's not creating new nonconformities.
Solicitor, doesn't that create a retroactive application of the new ordinance? Now you're making.
No.
It does not?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
If we were telling people, hey, you have to get rid of the last 9 expansions, then yes.
I have a question on non-conforming lots, 280, 176, subsection D. Where 2 or more adjacent lots, 1 or more of which is non-conforming based on lot size or lot width, are concurrently owned by the same owner, these adjacent lots shall be merged to minimize the non-conformity. I don't understand that. It sounds like it's not legal.
Oh, it's very legal. In fact, there's a whole series of case law on what's called the doctrine of merger. They're nonconformities, even though they're constitutionally protected, are, from the courts, are not really liked. And they want, the law wants to eliminate them as quickly as possible without treading on someone's constitutional rights. So in this case, the law absolutely allows for townships, any municipality to adopt what's called a merger provision to eliminate undersized or too narrow lots.
So since we've established it's legal, how do you feel about, is it fair? Because I think someone could lose money this way if he owned 2 properties and he was forced to merge them.
Yes, it can be looked that way, but at the same time, there are ways to get around the doctrine of merger. So the case law states, basically, to kind of, without really getting down into it, what the case law says is that if you own 2 neighboring lots and 1 or both of them are undersized, the doctrine of merger, the municipality they're located in has to have a doctrine of merger. Otherwise, you're fine. And even if the municipality does have a doctrine of merger, if the lots are physically separated, visually separated, so that a ignorant passerby going past the lots looks at both of them and be like, oh, that looked like 2 lots, the doctrine of merger doesn't apply. If the passerby goes by and it looks like one big lawn, it does apply. So this is not a situation where, if someone is aware of what's going on here, there are ways for that person to ensure to preserve their rights into 2 separate lots. But, the law, like I said, the law is written in such a way that when there's a chance to get rid of the non-conforming lot, the law says, yeah, have at it.
So solicitor, I'm very comfortable with the same owner, merger doctrine concept. I'm far less comfortable with the father who has a conforming lot and his son decides to buy a non-conforming lot next door so he can live next to his dad. And for the purposes of this, you're essentially forcing them to put up a fence so that they can distinguish the two lots. Or alternatively, you're merging the two lots, foreclosing on the possibility that the non-conforming lot could be developed. I don't think that squares up with me. You talk us through that?
So the language regarding, the extra language in here where it says, well, we're going to treat two separate people who are, related, or two separate entities that are somehow related, or a person and a corporation that person owns as the same entity. That language is added because 9 times out of 10, when you're dealing with this situation, you're dealing with a developer who is basically trying to get one or two multiple parcels super cheaply, because that developer knows, hey, I can take advantage of this. If I do it this way, I get multiple lots. This language is added to deal with developers who are playing games with the township. It's not used against innocent residents. It's not used against, in your situation, a father and son. In that father and son situation, like I said, the language says it's a rebuttable presumption. So, in that situation, especially if the father and son bought the lots at 2 separate times, that would certainly go a long ways to say, yeah, we didn't intend for these to merge. We never intended to treat them as a combined lot. We always intended to treat them as 2 separate lots. And that's really what the key is. It's the key for the landowner to say, oh, I've always wanted to deal with these as 2 separate lots. That's why putting up the fence is a physical evidence of that intention. And in your situation where a father has lived on a property for 20 years and then the son comes back and says, okay, hey, the lot next door is for sale. Great, I'll buy it and I'll build a house there. It's going to be very easy for that person to say, no. We've always wanted to keep this as a separate, unmerged property. And, they just have to, be able to show that to the township. So I understand your concerns, but I think practically speaking, your example, while it could happen, is a very unlikely scenario. And getting rid of this language, what you're going to have is the more likely scenario, which is tons of developers taking advantage of the loophole and preventing us, being able to build a whole bunch of houses at a much higher density, much closer together than what we intend.
Sure, but I think at the same time, when you're dealing with those 9 out of 10 type of examples, the developers, who are sophisticated entities,
Yes.
upon purchase, there would be an immediate fence put up or some sort of a border between 2 lots, which would extinguish this portion of the ordinance.
They could, it's always a game. I don't know if game's the right way, but yeah, there's always issues back and forth. But like I said, the reason why the township is enacting this merger clause is to try to eliminate these lots, and this is the best way of doing it. And yeah, are there ways to avoid it? Are there ways to get around it? Absolutely, yes, but that doesn't mean we should just eliminate the clause as is.
I hear that. I just feel that the presumptive language is, I think it sends the wrong message. And I understand that the possibility of this impacting individual owners or certainly family members. We're not defining family members here either, which I think would be valuable, right? But I think if it impacts even a small percentage of innocent parties, I think you should probably take another look.
I agree with MJ, and I think also there are streets and neighborhoods in Radnor where one person has developed maybe 17, 20 properties over time, like inherited the land, divided the land up, and it's all contiguous. The ownership it's him or her, and how are they going to interpret this? You know, when they see this in print, are they going to be like, is that about me, or is it it's not me? And so I feel a little rushed, a little bit. Like I feel like I haven't had enough time with this.
Well, as far as your last comment goes, there is no rush. At least as far as I know, no one's screaming at me, get this through the planning commission, okay? So if you guys want to look at this again and come back, have at it. I'm certainly, I haven't been told otherwise.
And just to clarify, as we spoke earlier, at the very least, you're already going to make some changes and come back to us with a revised ordinance before we were even going to act on it.
Correct.
Okay. So I think tonight we could provide, if we so choose, to give Solicitor Nelson additional edits to either make or consider.
I think we just did that.
With that issue, maybe.
I have one more question, weird question. Is the ZHB involved in any of this?
No. No, the zoning hearing board, their sole job is to address applications in front of them for variances, special exception, blah, blah, blah. They are not empowered, and they should not be reviewing the zoning ordinance at all. The Planning Commission, on the other hand, is specifically empowered to review land development ordinance amendments, South O zoning, as well as reviewing, land developments like you normally do.
Can we receive the 3 examples over email between this meeting and our next meeting so that we don't have to spend next meeting going over those examples?
So Commissioner Wu, Mr. Kim, I've directed our zoning officer to do was to get those examples by the 15th and send them out to you. So you should have them well ahead of the meeting. And like the solicitor said, we can definitely bring this back next meeting when you folks have had a chance to digest and take a look at things and come up with additional comments or questions.
Okay, before we go further with any additional commissioner questions and comment, I see we have a member, I think, from the public. And if you would like to be heard, please come up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and let us know your thoughts.
My name is David Lambert. I live in Ravenscliff. And do you want the exact address? No? You do? Okay, no, sure.
Sir, could you please speak into the microphone if you could?
Sorry.
Thank you.
David Lambert, and I live at 240 Ravenscliff. I'm not here about this issue, by the way. And I don't know whether you can respond back to me or not, but I want to make a statement of what I think should be important. We're all aware of the plans to demolish 118, 120. I mean, it's all over the media and conversation, et cetera. And there have been the concerns about impact on parking, noise, sidewalk blockage, et cetera. And then 118 North specifically provides jobs, venues for music performers, positions, and it's an attraction to the street in general. But it would close that down for a year or more. That's assuming they would come back. But missing from the list, and this is one of the things I want to present to you, is this list of concerns, all of which are important and valid, and I'm hoping they get considered when reviewing plans, like the impact on that part of the community. Is it 118 North host fundraisers for Radnor causes?
Sir, just over here, to your right.
Pardon?
The planning commission has already reviewed this and gave the recommendation on this plan. It is going to be going in front of the Board of Commissioners.
No, no, it's not.
Don't we still have to do a final on that?
No.
So it'll be for preliminary. So the process is Planning Commission, Board of Commissioners for preliminary. If they receive preliminary approval, they go through the process again. But as the solicitor said, this has been through the Planning Commission. The Board of Commissioners, who have the final say on all, 118, 120 North will be before them at the June 15th meeting. So you may be best served presenting these concerns to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. And I can do that too. I mean, I'm not assuming these are mutually exclusive. I just wanted to say, when you make a recommendation, which I had been told was not final, that they had to appear before you before, do you take into account the give back that a business might have in a situation like this? Because I don't think everyone knows. I'm a retired researcher, but I'm a musician. And when I went to the owner and said, hey, I have this foundation and you pay me to write a check to the foundation when I play here. And here are a couple of the kids. Two of them are from recent Radnor High School graduates with financial needs. Some people think everybody on the main line has money. No, there are pockets of poverty for sure. And these kids have that. And why I'm saying, and without missing a beat, he says, wow, this is cool. How can I give more? And came up with a plan to give more. And then I found out about things they do for the high school. Fundraisers there, free space, free, and then someone else, those are just examples. And admittedly, I'm biased because my foundation gets some when I play and do things. So I'm just asking, do you take into account not just the business, but what that business gives back? That's all I'm asking. That's one. The second thing is that, you know, when you go to a court, like small business or family court or whatever, it's not uncommon for the judge to say something like, have you considered like talking about maybe some kind of compromise or whatever? Does it have to, is it a review of their plan and that's it? Or do you say like, couldn't you get almost everything you want, like the 3 stories, but still leave that corner there? Has that been considered? And I'm only saying that because I'm not an architect, but an architect friend of mine said, you could do that, leave 118 the way it is, but you need some supporting columns for the additional weight on top. And then 120 could be taken down in all 3. Or is it a unidirectional process? Like, this is my proposal, take it or leave it. I don't know these things. I've never been to anything like this. But those are my 2 concerns, like the first being, do you consider how much the business that's going to be affected and maybe lost into account, how much they give back? And then the second piece is asking if they'd consider an alternative that's a compromise.
Okay. So that project was in front of us a couple of times. At the last hearing, at the last meeting, we reviewed it and we recommended preliminary approval. And what Mr. Norsini was saying is that preliminary approval recommendation is now going to the Board of Commissioners in whatever that is, 2 weeks.
I thought their meeting was on the 8th. I have it wrong, I guess.
The Board of Commissioners?
Yes, sir, that's the 15th, June 15th.
Okay,
For the summer, they shift the meeting because they only have 1 during the month instead of 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what Mr. Norsini was saying is because that issue is not in front of us, we're not going to make any further recommendation on that at this time. Instead, Board of Commissioners. So you may want to take your concerns to the Board of Commissioners on the 15th, present it at that time, and depending on what they do, that project may eventually come back to us on a final approval, but not now. So we have no further discussion or jurisdiction over that topic at the moment.
Can I ask you generically? I get the impression that all those first things I mentioned, disruption, sidewalk noise, impact on the business, are taken into account. but would give back be taken into account also? Generically, I'm not saying in this case.
You know, that's a hypothetical.
Yes, it is.
And it's certainly something you could present, and then maybe that would be considered in whatever form. So suggestion is take your concerns to the Board of Commissioners on the 15th.
I will.
And present it at that time and see what the feedback is and go from there.
Yeah, and then the second hypothetical, and you're going to say it's hypothetical, and it is.
It is, and that's a structural thing we couldn't even opine on to begin with. What we have is, we're not negotiating plans with people. They had an application for a certain construction and deconstruction, which included taking down 118 and then rebuilding it.
I know.
Whether the same operator goes back in, I don't know. They might have a better idea. But recommend that you take those concerns to the Board of Commissioners and present it
On the
there.
15th.
Yep, much more effective and appropriate.
First of all, thanks for letting me raise my concerns and also for your feedback. Do you want a copy of this, or should we just say, nah, take it to the board?
Take it to the board, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with regard to the proposed ordinance, do we have additional commissioner comment, questions at this time? Mr. Nelson, couple ideas. I guess we could take a vote on a specific edit or two to say this is what we do want you to do, or you've heard all the discussion tonight and you can consider that on its face?
I don't think a formal vote is necessary, but maybe, kind of a testing of the waters. The sense I got as far as the first comment, eliminating the word all from that first section, I certainly got the sense that that was something everyone was fine with.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In lawyer language, sometimes you say not just all, but you could say any and all. Was that your intent to,
At this point in time, I was just going to delete the word all.
okay, if that works, then that could be
Unless
supported.
someone on, the 8 of you, one of you has an issue with it, that was my plan.
Good.
I think the only other thing was the language as far as the merger goes. That I was going to ask, what the board would like to see there, because it was a little less unclear as to how people would want that language changed or eliminated.
So that could end up being mixed.
Yeah, and I feel like I need a little more brain time on that. I don't want to just blurt it out what I've already said again.
Okay,
I feel like some of us here feel like we need to do more review.
okay. I know at least one commissioner feels strongly about it. I, at the moment, don't share that concern. I think it is a rebuttable presumption, is it not, Mr. Solicitor?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not a hard and fast rule, and it allows for flexibility, in that it's a presumption, which, if there's concern of people gaming, that having that flexibility, could be applicable. I guess a third consideration was 172C, which is the limitation of one and done. That's something that at the moment I could be in favor of deleting. Other commissioners have thoughts?
I agree, yeah.
I see a lot of nodding heads, that's all I need.
Okay, were there any other sections we were thinking about?
Well, just a little more clarity on the fee schedule issue, because it's not at all clear what fee would apply, and I don't know if that.
Looking at the fee schedule, I don't think the fee schedule currently has one. So that would be up to the staff to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and then the Board of Commissioners adopt a change to the fee schedule to add this to it. So, yeah, at this time, I didn't read through it all, but I went through it pretty quick. Nothing jumped out at me as really applicable. So, I don't think the fee schedule currently has a related fee.
And the idea is that this would not be used as revenue enhancement, this
No,
fee, whatever would be
legally, we
applied.
can't. Every fee the township charges, it has to be basically constructed in such a way to try to recover the township's costs, but no more.
Okay.
And obviously, each application is a little different, so you're gonna make some money on some, lose some money on others, but in the long run, basically, it should be revenue neutral. You know, as far as not having a fee on the fee schedule currently, what that means is if someone comes in and applies and says, hey, I want to register my non-conforming use, the township's still obligated to do it, but we can't charge for it.
And just to clarify on that, if you set a fee today, and then in next budget, you decide for accounting purposes, you could triple it, quadruple it, that would not come back to us. That isn't within our,
No, none of the fees, yeah, the whole fees thing is not you. That's between the staff and the
Yeah.
Board of Commissioners.
yeah. So I think I viewed it like Commissioner Brubaker did, more of a curiosity, what are we talking about? And then to make sure that it's not a revenue enhancer, but it is a recoupment. Okay. Are there any other sections of this proposed ordinance that we should have Mr. Nelson consider at the moment?
I guess more of a process question for me. If we are reviewing this further between now and the next meeting and we're looking for more clarity, is it appropriate to sort of share our questions and reach out for that, or should those be held until the next meeting for discussion?
I mean, if you guys want to email me or call me with questions, you absolutely certainly can. Obviously, for the planning commission to make any action on those questions, that needs to take place at a public meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, with that, Mr. Nelson, I think we'll leave you to redline your ordinance and
Yep.
come back to us.
That will work. Thank you.
Excellent. I will note, as far as old business goes, that the Wayne Business Overlay District Master Plan is an ongoing process. We do not have, I don't think we've been given an update on that process. However, the website for the project is www.avisionforwayne.com, and interested persons can go to that website for more information. Okay, any other comment, question, new or old business? No. I'm going to move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The next meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled for July 6, 2026. Thank you and good evening.
Nicely steered.